This week on Women Who Rise, I'm joined by Kendall Bonner, attorney turned real estate powerhouse, founder of the Kendall Bonner team, and VP of Industry Relations at eXp Realty. Kendall shares how she built her business from the courtroom to the closing table and why hustle isn't enough without strategy, systems, and mentorship. We talk leadership, reinvention, and what it really takes to rise in today's market. And this episode is pure gold. Hi, this is Heather Mansy with Women Who Rise, the success podcast for ambitious women. Today, my special guest is Kendall Bonner, attorney turned real estate powerhouse and VP of Industry Relations at eXp Realty. Honored as a Housing Wire Woman of Influence, Kendall combines her legal background with strategic leadership to build sustainable, mentorship-centered real estate operations. She is dedicated to empowering both new and seasoned agents through structured support, grounded in the belief that relationships, systems, and adaptability are essential. As a recognized leader and advocate, her philosophy reflects growth, accountability, and innovation in Tampa's real estate landscape. And I am so pleased to have her here with me today. Welcome, Kendall, and thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Heather, this is a pleasure and an honor. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really grateful to be here.
Absolutely. Well, let's get right into it. I'm so excited to get some wisdom from you today. As you know, we seek to contribute to women in all aspects and careers throughout their lives, some of which could possibly be in real estate as well. And so I wanted to ask, your career started in law. Can you take us back to your earliest professional memory or experience and what initially drew you into advocacy or a leadership role?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know, and a lot of people often ask me too, like, how do you transition from being a lawyer into real estate? So it makes a lot of sense because it's a huge shift in my career and in my life. But how I ended up in law school really was my mother. My mom was a doctor. She was a physician, had an MD. In fact, I was born while she was in medical school. And
Wow.
while I was growing up, my mom I remember I said to my mom when I was maybe 15 or 16 years old, I wanted to be a teacher because there was just something about that and working with other people and helping others learn. At a young age, I recognized I enjoyed doing that. And she said, yeah, try again. They don't make any money. And it was really, she said that, just trying to protect me and give me a better future. And she said, what I recommend to you, Kendall, is JD, MD, PhD, pick one. So in my household, going to college was not really anything special. According to my mother, it was like going to high school was like expected. And so it was that postgraduate education that she felt would really give me the advantage that she hoped I would have in my career and in my life. And so I ended up in law school, which is the Juris Doctorate degree, the JD, uh, right out of college. And so I was 24 when I graduated from law school. And so I was a baby. And I I ended up going into legal practice. I did not actually plan to practice law originally. I didn't even register for the California bar. I'm from California, born and raised. And you're supposed to do that right when you get into law school. But my husband, who I met while I was in law school, and after we graduated, got married and all of that, I had wanted to go back to school for my PhD because again, that teaching was still top of mind. So I thought, oh, I'll be a professor or something along those lines. And my husband's like, no, you have student debt. You got to go practice law and like pay back your bills, and I was like, okay, that's fair. And because I loved education. So that was always something that I expected I would continue into. But so I started practicing law right out of school and came to Florida. My husband and I moved to Florida So our little funny story is, I asked him out on our first date. We got from our first date meeting to wedding was 11 months. And then, so we got married on Saturday, graduated law school on Sunday. And by Tuesday, we're in the car driving from Los Angeles, California to Tampa, Florida, which is where I've been since 2003.
Wow.
Yeah. And took the Florida bar, passed it the first time, thank God. And started practicing law. I was doing criminal defense at that time. And that was interesting. I have some interesting stories from that time in my life.
I imagine you really would. And I can tell you there's several key things I really picked up on. I mean, number one, your parents, your mom was basically, JD, Juris Doctorate attorney, MD, that's a doctor, or PhD, very high level of education and other academia studies. And it's really incredible to me, number one, that you had that push. And that someone not only believed that you could do it, but really just kind of expected, like, this is what we do in our family. And I think that really changes the concept of possibility inside of a person's family, inside of a person's reality. You were living in a reality where that was very normalized. And so therefore you believed, I think a part of you certainly would have imagined, yes, I can do this too, because the people who came before me did that. It's like you're a daughter of bricklayers, how to, or imagine that you could probably be really good at that. I also am very curious about the fact that, look, I mean, in any measure, possessing a law degree already at the age of 24 is saying something about your internal sense of drive, being able to then also go on to pass the bar the first time. Yes, after this amazing whirlwind romance and wedding. I had about a year between my courtship and marriage too, and I love it. 26 years later, we're going strong. But I yep, I'll take that. But I love that, number one, you had that drive in you. Can you maybe define what you think it is about you? And maybe that was unique among your siblings and your family, or maybe it wasn't, that said, hey, Kendall, like, I'm going to totally badass this. I'm going to be a 24-year-old graduate with a degree in law.
What's funny, back then, especially, a lot of people have, I think, assumptions about me because they meet me today. And, the version of Kendall that shows up today is, I would say, a very evolved woman compared to the version of me that existed back then. A lot of people recognize the leadership in me today, et cetera, which I'm humbled by and I'm grateful for. But that's not how I perceived myself back then. I really was, in my own words, I was a people pleaser, right? And it came down to pleasing my mother and what made my mother happy and doing what she expected of me, because I trusted her. And I believed that what she was telling me would be good for me and my future. So, not that I did everything my mom wanted me to do, because she probably would not. She's passed away now, but I don't know that she would have agreed with that statement. But for the most part, I did what I was guided to do. And I'm thankful that I had a good guide, because I know that that's not typical of many people's households, right? My mom put in her trust that if we did not finish college, we couldn't even inherit. And so it was very important to her that we get an education and that we pursue a career and that would, take care of us for our lives. And so I'm very grateful for that level of push and an intensity.
That's incredible. When you think about as a mom, it looks to me, to be honest, Kendall, like you had an early coach that was, because you and I are at levels that, we will go in and enact coaching. We will hire people that will make it possible for us to elevate. I mean, anyone in the Olympics, anyone at a really high level in any sport. A friend of mine, has a son that's learning how to be maybe a Formula One driver. These people all have coaches. It's how you really can get up where you need to be. And it's like you said before and acknowledge, not everyone has the good, chance of having, that experience inside their own household. And so many times they need to look outside of the household for that. Or in fact, maybe that household doesn't know how to approach that certain type of success in life. But your mother had really, really clear visions for you guys. And the fact that she went so far as to even put it almost in a legal way, like you guys need to be able to kind of manage yourselves, shows that she wanted to take care of you. And the best way probably is have you be able to take care of yourselves long after she was gone. And I share that I also had the very strong leader of a mom in my background. And although she did not work necessarily in some of the fields that I have, she certainly led me to believe that I could be anything. And like you wanted to make sure that I was going forward. Um, I love that you said two things that I think are really critical when it comes to any coach, because I know a lot of people here are maybe not going to have that exact person, or maybe they need to adopt a new coach in their life. And I'm sure you probably have as well at times. But there's two things you said. You trusted her, and you wanted to please her. I really do find that is, that or some measure of that. Those are critical components when a person has a coach or when you engage coaching. It's not just, hey, I paid $5,000 or 20 grand or whatever, and therefore I'm going to do the thing. You actually have to trust what they say. And you might want to please them, or, you might be chasing their coattails. You might be wanting to emulate them. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's absolutely correct. When hiring someone or working with someone or being mentored by somebody, because I always did see my mom as an in-home mentor because she passed down a ton of wisdom to me
Yeah.
throughout my life. And, whether I took action on all of that in the moment or not, I did log it, right? Like I did track it. I did keep it in my memory. And in fact, I repeat it to myself all the time because I feel like it was wisdom that she actually gave me in my career and for my life. And I think that when it comes to mentorship, coaching, et cetera, because I absolutely believe in hiring coaches. I've hired them throughout my career and they've been game changers for me. You do have to trust your coach. And second, you have to take action, right? And that part is, I think, the hardest part most people struggle with is doing the things that they're being coached to do. And it doesn't work if you don't take the action, right? And I've found a lot of success by taking action on the things that and the assignments that I've been given. And I think that's it had a huge impact on my career because I allowed myself to get out of my comfort zone, recognizing that growth was on the other side of that. And I think what has been one of my keys to my current trajectory and my future is that I've never allowed fear to stop me from doing really anything. Um, if I want to do it, I'll say that. Because like if you ask me to jump out of a plane, the answer is no. I have zero interest in doing that.
This was
But
my first thought, I'll have you know, because yes, like I learned how to dive. I did a few things, and there used to be a time with the plane jumping, but it literally my brain just went to that, or like that bungee jumping. But the qualification is well taken, which is that yes, you have to have decided that's something you want.
yeah,
And as a core component, I think of any goal, deciding that you want something, and then like you were going on to say, fear, you will not let it stop you. What does that look like?
yeah, a great question. And I've been really analyzing this over the last year because of a conversation I had on a stage a year ago at the first Women's Impact Network event with EXP. I was on a panel with Renee Funk. She was a moderator. And the original topic of that panel was going to be about relationships and referrals, things like that. And when we did our prep call, she got on the call and she said, ladies, that's boring. She said, what I really want to talk about, if you'll allow me, is what's the impact of the excuses we're telling ourselves? Like,
Mm.
and how has that changed our life? And when she said that, that really resonated for me because I said, wow, what a powerful question. And how many people, women included, especially us, have allowed excuses. And really, they come in the form of fear and, anxieties. And, it shows up in many ways as
Mhm.
fear, excuses, et cetera, distractions, all of that. it shows up differently for each of us, but how often have we allowed that to prevent us from doing something that, we ultimately did want for ourselves, or we did want to do, but we're afraid to do, or felt like there was a voice telling us, no, that's not for you.
Yes, and
And therefore it was outside our comfort zone.
exactly. And I love this this whole line of, thought, because really it harkens back to, I think there's a book came out a few years ago, finding happiness or whatever that is. And the researcher found that actually some of the people who gauged themselves as the happiest had not had any certain perfect chain of events. And in fact, most of them, oddly, had come against something very tragic, very difficult, loss of a limb, something that just absolutely knocked them off of their regular life, their foundation, whatever it was that there was like the thing that they were going to be doing. And the why it caused happiness, or why they arrived at a position of saying that they were happy, is because it caused them to remove all excuses and probably a large degree of fear of the thing that they wanted to do. I think you can talk about people who your mom has passed, mine has passed a few years ago as well, and this concept of life is short, we need to make something of it. If we're going to do XYZ, we better get on it, because I don't know about you, but 20 years, who knows what is the time we have left if we're fortunate. And so this is another thing where you say, how much time are we wasting in fear, distractions, and excuses? We stop ourselves from true happiness and from true reach of our goals. And I know resistance is one of the words I discussed with my team just yesterday, as it looks like a lot of things. And your brain will say, oh, this is totally normal, we should be doing this, and this other thing is crazy. But in fact, the thing that's crazy is probably the one that would make you the most happy, if you could simply get past yourself in doing that. So I want to switch gears for a second, because I have a question for you here as well. And that is, this I think leads into that, which is, you've said hustle alone isn't enough to build a sustainable business. Because again, you're a vice president right now in EXP, a big global corporation that is making huge waves, and we'll talk about that later. But you've also established companies of your own after becoming a lawyer, after being a criminal attorney. And I want to treat you to a glass of wine one day and hear about those stories. But you said that hustle alone isn't enough to build a sustainable business. What was a key challenge that maybe taught you that? And how did you shift your strategy maybe inside of your business to overcome it?
Yeah, that is a huge question. And I could probably actually tie it back to a couple of different stories in my life. But I did grow up behind a woman who worked a lot, right? My mom was I would say she was a workaholic, right? And so that was the example set before me. And I also went down that path as a part of my career. I was a workaholic. And it's always hard too, because when you enjoy what you do, you don't always feel like you're working. And so there is a balance to that, right? Or there is a piece to that conversation, which we can get into, balance and boundaries, which is also really top of mind for me lately. But with hustle, to me, I didn't know any better but to work hard, because that's the example that I had seen. And I don't believe that hard work is, a waste. I believe in hard work. I believe in grit. I believe in putting everything behind what you're doing. However, I do believe, though, that if you're not also coupling that with, you know, my biggest, aha and goal today is leverage, right? And, the hard work doesn't lead to the best life possible. The best life possible comes from leverage and scalability and being able to, experience the things in life that you most enjoy. And if you're always working, you're not prioritizing things like rest. And rest
Mhm.
comes in many forms, right? It's not just sleep. It is also that mental break away from the challenges you have in your world. But it also includes like the time with family, the time, the personal time. Like I enjoy my alone time, right? Outside of everyone else. Like that is how I renew myself, is through alone time. Where other people get energized in different ways, that's my reset. And so it's important, I think, to find like where your um, activities most enjoyed reside, and that you also make sure you build that into your life. And you can only do that though is if you create a business that works whether you're in it or not. And so by finding leverage, I think that for me is my definition of success, is being able to scale myself, um, and be able to do more by also doing less, right? In other ways.
Yeah, I think that makes incredible sense. And, it's one of the reasons I was so excited to have you here today, because I knew that your position really places you at this amazing convergence between people and the systems and opportunities that can help us all to, be better and create leverage. I wanted to ask you before we go to that, what is your leadership style? When you were running your team primarily, owning and managing, that what did that look like? Were people, highly independent or dependent under your systems? Were you, kind of top down management? Did you create multiple levels in your organization? What did you learn from having that and find as sort of a good balance in an organizational style?
Yeah, I would answer that question by saying this. I've always, I shouldn't say always, I've grown into a leader
Yeah.
who builds other leaders,
Okay.
right? I believe that I don't want to be the blocker of anything. I also don't want to crush or stifle innovation, because I've been that leader before, right? I think when you evolve as a leader, we all think we know what leadership looks like. And it's often a mirror of what you've seen from others, right?
Hmm.
And I think as generations, I'm a Gen Xer, right? We've come across now several different generations and types of leadership. We see a very stark difference between the generation older than us and their leadership and what it was like in a work environment versus the generations younger than myself and us, who are different types of leaders. And I find that when it comes to leadership, I have an actual acronym for this, for lead, what it takes to lead. And it's listen, empower, appreciate, and develop. And so for me, I live by these four principles as a leader. It was important to me as a leader to be a servant and to listen. What are the people, what do they need? And what's important to them, and how can I serve them better? Because you can't serve it or even give value if you don't know what the other person values. And that's a
I
huge
love that so
difference
much. Yeah.
by, I
Literally,
think.
I mean, yeah, I just wrote that down. This is amazing. And I love your acronym for that. And the fact that you've also talked about the concept of being a servant to the people that you lead. This echoes some of the best leaders I've experienced personally. But like you said, yes, coming from our generation, doesn't mean that that's what we were seeing. And I totally took note to what you said, the leader I've grown into, which I think for people watching this podcast, if they're going, wow, how would I ever become, like these ladies, or whoever's coattails they're chasing, is that it's incrementally. It is a one step at a time. You will notice what you do well, what you don't, what works well, what doesn't, and that you'll evolve over time. Because yes, as a leader, you can seek control because you're thinking you're trying to direct and control, and you may actually find that you will be better poised in not all but many situations to empower, I love it, appreciate, develop, and serve.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, for example, and I would say if you are a young person listening right now, or a person, period, right now thinking, how do I become a leader? I would say the first thing is think of yourself as one, right? Own that you are a leader. And constantly try to empower people around me that you are a leader, no matter what your station in life is, right? You are leading someone. If no one else, yourself. But, if you're a parent, you have children you're leading. If you're a partner or a spouse in a relationship, you are leading the other spouse and vice versa. If you're a team member on a team, you are leading because you have clients and customers that are coming to you for support and assistance. As a real estate professional, you are a leader. And so, for the first step is just recognizing that you are a leader, regardless of where you think you are in your world. And then that will cause you to start to show up as one, right? And to be more cognizant of what that looks like. And so, like I said, it's listening, it's empowering others, right? And for me, I and my current team right now, both my sales team as well as my team as staff at EXP, I'm constantly trying to empower them that you don't need my validation or my approval to make decisions. If you think that there's a problem and you have a solution and it's a solid one, put it together and share it with me. You don't need me to solve the problem. The solution's within you. Sometimes people do want that validation, and I understand that. And I'm good with giving you that in the beginning. But my goal is to eventually coach you up to where you don't need my validation. You just come to me, hey, Kendall, we had this problem. This is how I solved it. And, I just wanted to let you know. I'm like, perfect, good, glad it's fixed. If you have any issues, let me know. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that frees people up to be innovative. It frees people up to think outside the box. And honestly, it also prevents bottlenecking, right? Like if we had to go all the way through all the steps to get everyone's approval, like nothing will get done. And there's too much happening, too fast. And and honestly too, that's how you learn, right? Because when you solve a problem and you realize like, oh, I missed something, well, you're more likely to catch that and take that next level of leadership and problem solving to that next level and learn and grow if you're part of that, right? Because there's an ownership that happens there. Whereas if it was someone else's idea, you don't own it, and the reaction and the response is completely different, and there's no growth there. So I think that's super important.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's so well said that, if we can allow for ownership and also creativity and inspiration and innovation, we're gonna have a better result from we're gonna be tapping into more talent really from the people who are in our sphere, in our businesses and under our management. And we also will be able to watch them rise, and we also will be able to see them having a better work experience in their own career, because they'll feel valued, and they won't feel stymied by a very firm top down leadership. So I wanted to ask, kind of changing gears here. We talked a little bit about real life balance. You lead at a really high level in a high pressure industry. I know you've already spoken about, being someone with a massive work ethic. How do you stay grounded while you're managing your roles as entrepreneur, executive, and mentor? What is it that you do, even just at a granular daily level, to rise and to wake up and be able to show up at a podcast like this on a high level? And I know you spoke about the importance of rest as well.
Yeah, it's important to me that I fulfill my activities most enjoyed, number one. And number two, what I would refer to as my working genius, right? So I read a book recently, and it was a game. I've read several recently that have changed my mindset very recently, but I'm a reader. So that's also a big deal to me. So I'm constantly finding ways to pour back into myself, and reading great books is one of those things where I'm learning. And so one of the books that I read recently was The Six Types of Working Genius by Patrick Lencioni. He's the same gentleman that wrote The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. A lot of people know that book.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
but The Six Types of Working Genius was a really powerful, insightful book for me. And especially when it comes to this concept of what I refer to now as balance and boundaries, as a counter to the hustle culture that I grew up in and that I honestly used to kind of promote and recommend, right? Like, oh, if you work hard, this is how you get where you want to go.
Yes.
But I think the ultimate goal or definition of success, while it looks different for everyone, comes from finding this world that we live in that I believe is grounded in balance and boundaries. And when I talk about the word balance, I do want to preface this by saying my definition of balance is not the traditional weighted balance beam that people think of. Like, I think of the ladies of justice. I have one of those on my desk in my office,
Yeah, the
right?
scales of
He's
justice.
holding the scales
Yes.
of justice, right? My mom bought that for me when I got graduated from law school. But anyway, it's not that. That to me is not balance. It's not this equal measure of work and personal. That's not my definition of balance. And I would honestly say most high level individuals, that is not their definition of balance either. I would say that what probably makes more sense for those of us that achieve high results is that the balance comes from spending the majority of our time doing the things that we know move the needle and that only we can do, right? And measuring out the things that don't require us and handing those that also still need to be done, but maybe are more administrative or less income generating, for example, and maybe also less enjoyed to someone else, right? And letting other people live in their working geniuses, right? Because in empowering someone else with the roles and responsibilities that are required, but that you don't like doing, but that someone else does, you're changing their life while also improving your own, right? And so that leads me to a second book I read right after The Working Type of Genius is Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And he talked about, when people go to hire new people, the mistake they make is that they hire it for positions they think they need, not for the position that would free up their time, because they end up, as entrepreneurs, we end up trying to start by doing everything.
Hmm.
And some of the things we like, some of the things we don't like, we end up spending more time doing the things we don't like than the things we do enjoy and that actually move the needle and grow the business. We get bogged down over here. And he said, you've got to hire people that take those things off your plate first. And that allows you to elevate, right? And so he's like, most people have it backwards. They hire the wrong person first, right? And there's probably 2 or 3 hires they should make before that one, that would actually free them up. And again, that brings that balance back. So for me, if I could spend 70% of my day working in my genius, it doesn't mean I don't spend time doing things I don't enjoy or things that that aren't important, right? Or they're important and I will still do them. But the goal here is to do less of the things I don't enjoy and more time doing the things I do enjoy. It's nothing to do with the hours of the week because I am a 60, 70 work hour a week kind of lady. But when you're doing the things that you love, it's certainly, like I said earlier, it doesn't quite feel like work in the same way. And then, of course, it's also about building boundaries around your world. I know for myself that it's so important to recognize that when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And people have to own that. Like you have to own that when you say no to something, you're saying yes to something else. As well as if you say yes, you're saying no. So, for example, this summer, my daughter is leaving to go to college. She's my baby, my last one. I'm going to be an empty nester here, and we're going to be dropping her off to college in just a couple of weeks from the time of this broadcast. But this summer, I chose to say no to certain speaking events because I wanted to be home to spend the summer with her. So that meant I was saying yes to her and my time with her and no to these other events. Now, that was important to me and I had to own that because I had to say no to a couple of things that I really wanted to say yes to. But I felt that if I said yes to that, then I was going to be taking away from the time and really precious time that I have with her as she goes off to, college this here shortly. So, when we do that, so another way that could show up is when agents say no to making phone calls, to putting in their prospect time. They're
Hmm.
saying yes to being broke and frustrated and continuing this um, challenge of their life not showing up in the way that they want to show up. Another book I read gave me a fabulous quote that I share all the time, which is, the quality of your life is a direct reflection of what you make non-negotiable. And that for me has been a foundational principle, wisdom that I have leveraged for probably, I think I read that book probably back in 2018, somewhere around there. Since then, right? In 7+ years of my life, I have remembered this principle. And so I say that to you as an audience member, is that, what have you chosen about your world, your daily activities, your future, your vision? What have you made non-negotiable? Or have you been just a really good negotiator and set these goals, right? And then negotiated yourself out of them, right? Or negotiated yourself out of the activity or the thing that you need to do that needs to be done for that goal to show up, right? So instead of calling it a goal, make it a commitment. What are you committed to? What are you going to make non-negotiable? And that to me is where I think most people, if they can like really own that, can really take themselves and their life to the next level because they're committed to these non-negotiables. And then that's when their life really will show up the way that they envisioned it. And that to me is the biggest blocker. We're our own biggest blocker in
Yeah.
our lives and in our worlds.
Oh, definitely. And this is fascinating. So there's so much gold in what you said, and I want to just unpack a couple things. But first, I really want to ask, what is the title of the book that gave you the non-negotiable quote?
Oh yeah, that was Keith Cunningham. It was The Road Less Stupid. It's a business book by Keith Cunningham.
I love it. Yeah, this is fabulous. The Road Less Stupid. And yes, so I've made a note of that because we'll share that out on our show notes, as well as the others that you've mentioned so far today. A couple of things here that I just want to unpack. One is, you talked about you are doing a 60 to 70 hour week. This is not inconsistent with what I know as well with high achievers. You're not going to necessarily have this, because I do think the younger generations, or just anyone in general hasn't gotten there yet, maybe thinking, cool, I can do this whole millionaire thing in 20 hours a week. I haven't myself figured that out. You can become wealthy and then go down to 20 hours a week if you're out of the production part of your life and job. But you also said something quite brilliant about all of this, which is maintaining that 70% of that time is within your working genius. And the fact of that being, you are enjoying a large part of your job. And I really do think this is a key component that is missed often, which is that if you put yourself in whatever industry, it could be really any industry, but if you put yourself into a working position as CEO, entrepreneur, or in management, or just whatever that is, once you find kind of that sweet spot for yourself in your working life, and if you're focusing on using your best abilities and your highest use, best purpose inside of that job, you'll like to work. You'll enjoy your job. It will fuel you. It will give you energy at the end of the day. I can say after a 12 to 18 hour day, I may be tired, hungry, ready to go home and eat, but my brain is buzzing and I'm really kind of excited about how that day went. And I'm guessing, and I'm inspired, and maybe my brain is trying to plan for the next day. I'm guessing that is a little bit true to your experience as well.
Yeah, I mean, I wake up early.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, time is not an excuse to not get something done. Like I get really frustrated when I hear people say I don't have enough time. It's like, well, that's not true. You are choosing to spend your time a particular way, and that's okay. Just own that. Again, I'm huge on personal accountability, personal responsibility, self-discovery. A lot of my conversations with people are typically not me telling them anything. It's me asking questions, right? And helping people self-discover through their blockers or their challenges and their internal conversations, right? Because a lot of times, like I said before, it's our own self, or the one one angel and the devil in our ears all the time telling us one way or the other, and who do we listen to? But yeah, I spend my time doing things that I know, one, are non-negotiable, and number two, will move the needle
Yeah.
in the direction, because I try to stay pretty clear on what's the end game, what's the vision, right? And I think when you can envision the vision, that's probably the most clarity you can ever have. If you can't envision the vision, you can't see it, that lack of clarity has an impact.
Yes.
And I think it's so valuable to take the time to get crystal clear on what it is that you want in the future, what you want for your life. What does it look like? What does it smell like? Who's with you? Where are you? You know, what are you doing? What and what's being, how much of that is impacted by others, things of that nature. I think when you can envision those things and and you're clear on what that looks like and what that wants, the race to get there can be a lot of fun because it's on the other side of everything that you do right now. And that's really powerful, I think. And you don't need outside motivation. I would say you don't even need outside inspiration. You need to have a clear vision that comes from within.
Yes.
And that is what ultimately will move you towards your future. And I feel like the people that are not moved are the people that lack that clarity and that they cannot envision the vision. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yes.
And then you want, right? And so then you start to pull things to you that help drive that. And it almost kind of works like science or like an invisible machine in the background once
It's
you
so true.
really get past to that.
Yeah, hack your mind. Yeah, I can say from my decades on this earth, what I have, the more that I've found out about the mind and how really writable as a program it is the most core information, the most important information that I've ever been able to receive or share, which is, one of my coaches has the statement, the wisdom you seek, all the wisdom you seek is inside of you. Because ultimately our motivations do come internally, but what we've got to do is take that time, like you mentioned, rest, another thing, but take that time to sit back and make sure that you are jotting those things down. And I love that you mentioned smell, because I have visualization exercises where we go like, what is your 1 year, 5 year, whatever projection? Now write down every single thing about it. How do you talk? How do you dress? What does that world look like to you? Where did you go? What does the water feel like when you dip your toes in the sand of Tahiti now that you've finally been able to go there? Whatever it is for you, what does that look like? So I want to give a little bit of time, before we end here, to talk about the corporation and position that you hold. What I know about EXP in my little baby's experience of it so far, in the last year and a half, is that this is a corporation that runs forward. And some of what you had spoken about earlier really kind of alluded to this for me as well, just culturally, not, never stopping progress, allowing for innovation from within. What does EXP have or do for its world, largely of agents that are game changers that other corporations simply aren't there, can't touch, or aren't trying to run forward to?
Yeah, great question. I would say, it brings me back to our core values. Now, I'm ashamed to say this. I haven't memorized all of EXP Corporate's core values, but there are a few that resonate for me. And I see them show up in every day. And maybe that's why they really resonate for me. But um, one of them is agility, right? We're agile. And meaning that we move fast, we can pivot quickly, we are not bogged down by um, structure that compresses. It's more of a system that wants us to expand. And I think of a quote that I've heard about Glenn, and I've said it to Glenn, and he's not contradicted that he actually believes this, which is, he said, if it's not broke, break it.
Wow.
And And I loved that. Like, it's scary on the front end, but like when you really sit to think about it, it's actually a really powerful, innovative way of thinking, which is, and I think of it, I was like, this is how he was able to create a model like EXP, because he took a framework that traditionally was not seen as broken. It was seen as the model, the traditional brokerage model, and he broke it. And by breaking it, he built something better, right? And he built something from a different frame of mind, from a different perspective, i.e. the agent. How do we protect the most valuable asset in real estate, which is the real estate professional? We are the center of all of it, right? Consumers need us and want us. Vendors need us and want us. Brokers need us and want us, right? The state needs our money and wants our money. Like, we
Yeah,
are the center. And
100%. Every dollar, and I've said this to my agents, every
oh my
single dollar that ever is generated, flows through, and in fact was created mano a mano, between the customer and an agent. And the whole
yeah,
industry must exist around us, which is why
well
it's
done.
so sad to see the whole thing, in my opinion, flipped upside down, where agents have the least leverage, the least, say at the table, the least, seat at the table. We really are the last person that can really speak on behalf of ourselves in terms of traditional sort of brick and mortar relationships, and in fact how kind of the industry was created.
Yeah, absolutely. And another powerful word that is another core value of EXP is sustainability. I think that that's the other key to this is, how do we live and last? How do we create longevity? How do we, like, live and last forever? How do we build something that has legacy? Like, when I think of sustainability, one of the things that I think about too is legacy, right? It lives on, it lasts, it makes an impact, right? It's efficient, right? Sustainability kind of engulfs all those words, and all those concepts for me. And I feel that that's another considerable advantage that EXP has, is because even as we quote break things, we are also, when we rebuild them, when we launch them, we design them to be sustainable, for them to live on, and to have a lasting impact. And I think that is, and this is showing up everywhere in the fact that so many other companies are trying to mirror and mimic what we're doing. The mistake they're making, though, is they're not contemplating sustainability because they're racing to the bottom. The solution to mirroring EXP isn't to be cheaper than EXP. That's not how you're going to beat EXP, in my opinion. In fact, you are just digging your own grave faster,
Yes, and
because you're not.
that's well taken, because if you can't do it for the long run, because you've decided to discount below what is fiscally responsible as a corporation, to allow that, like you said, sustainability, you're missing the key component, or reason to do any of it. Being the cheapest is not the most sustainable. It's not longevity. It's not the best. It's not the best quality. It's not the best management. Yes.
Yeah, it's a race to the bottom, and which is why EXP doesn't compete on that, right? We don't compete on price. We're not here to go deeper, spend more, or go cheaper to win. We're not here for that. And we're here to be sustainable, and to live, and to have a legacy, and to make a long-term impact on the industry. So those for me are like the two top of mind things that come to mind about from your original question is, that's what I think really sets us apart. It shows up in how we prioritize our agents every day. Our most recent launches, around Canva Pro, that was about supporting our agents at a higher level. It was about CRM of choice. That was a project that Leo, I'm so grateful and honored to have been able to bring to the forefront or bring to life for EXP, as CRM of choice. That was one of Leo's brainchilds that he's had envisioned and goals he's had for years for this company. And now that's real, and that's live, and that's a new opportunity for agents to have even more choice and more impact on their own businesses, right?
Yeah.
And then I have a couple of other projects I'm working on coming soon too. So it's like these things are all designed to keep our agents, um, you know, leveraged whenever as they desire, successful, productive, right? For us, we want our agents to be as productive and as profitable as the lives that they aspire to lead, right? And I think that by continuing to build tools, structure, systems, fast cap, you know, all the things that we're fast to track, like all these systems and programs that we're building and these tools and these third party innovations that we're bringing in are all designed to support the agent to be more successful. And I think that there's no other winning strategy that I can imagine that would be more impactful than that.
I think that's incredible and so, so, so well said. I want to be really, really conscious of your time. If there is, any sort of a key takeaway or something, I did want to very, very briefly touch on, what are key technological advancements. I know AI is probably going to be a little bit on the top of that list there that you advocate use of in business, maybe as just a whole branch of something like, for example, AI, or, having short form video or whatever it is that you advocate use of for someone to create additional value to themselves in and around their business or their career so that they can level up and rise.
Yeah, I'll finish with this. I will say that it is so important. The first most important thing I think that most agents need and they do not have today has nothing to do with technology.
Hmm.
It has everything to do with a plan, a blueprint for their business.
Yeah.
I think that agents lack blueprints, and part of the failure in a blueprint is the failure of a vision, right? And a goal, an outcome that they're expecting as a result of this. Too many agents, if you ask any agent today, or any leader today, what do you think an agent's goal is when they go into real estate? We always say the same thing: to make $100,000. Like literally, that is what you hear all the time, and that's not a plan. That's
Yeah.
not a vision. That's just a number. So go deeper, right, on that. And like really build out what's the who, what, when, where, why, how of your future, and map that backwards into what are the daily activities that you need to do in order to have that future show up. That would be my first tip. But as far as like technology goes, technology should be there to do a couple of things for you: create system, automation, and leverage, right? And so, well, I guess systems and automation lead to leverage so that you can do the things that technology cannot do for you, right? Which is show up, have relationship with people. Um, Relying on technology to do that for you, I think, is a mistake. The technology should be there to create systems and automations for you where that makes sense, right? And so the technology I'm passionate about right now, I'm obsessed with AI. Another great book I read that I would recommend here today is The
Yeah.
AI Driven Leader by Jeff Woods. That was a game changer for me. It made me a superhuman. It gave me superpowers. And it taught me some strategies around AI and a mindset around AI that I think has really elevated me in the recent past. Um, Other technologies that I recommend people leverage is, really dig in on a CRM and leveraging it to its highest level. If you're
Yeah.
not using a CRM in your business, you are wasting time. You are losing business and you are wasting time. A CRM can truly bring clarity and leverage to your business. And I would say the third thing is in terms of systems is, there's a ton of technology out there, and some of it costs money, some of it is free, and that's okay. Whatever you decide to do, build a plan around it, build a budget around it, and then commit to using it for a period of time before you decide if it works or not. And the secret to technology, in my opinion, for adoption is like building systems around it and pulling it into your daily use. Like if you don't find ways to use it every day, you will just abandon it and not use it at all. So don't add a piece of technology until you're ready, until you've built the plan, you see how you're going to use it in your business every single day, or as close to that as possible. And I think that's the way that you can find the most sustainable and like practical use of technology going forward.
Yeah, I think that's phenomenal. I cannot thank you more, Kendall, for joining our podcast today. This is incredible. So much gold. I, love everything. I think just my show note wrap up is going to be this long. It's because of your wisdom, your brilliance, your bright shining light that it's going to help other women be able and others be able to find themselves able to rise in their world, in their communities, and in their jobs. And become mentors for others. So I appreciate you so much for joining me. I thank you so much. And I look forward to airing this episode and to hearing what all the response will be, because I think you are phenomenal.
Thank you, Heather. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. Well, folks, that's it for today's podcast. Thank you so much for joining Women Who Rise, the success podcast for ambitious women. Today, Kendall taught us you don't begin as a leader, you grow into one. She had her acronym for LEAD, and really so much of that was around instead of going to top down management, you would instead inspire, you would listen to, you would seek to serve, and you would be a more holistic leader in that way that you're allowing the capacity of others to rise up and supporting what that is and giving them space to create and lead among themselves. Like she said, a true leader creates and inspires other leaders. I thought this was phenomenal. Number two, trust your coach. If you are going to have a coach, whether that's someone in your household, she had an incredible mentor in her own mother, and she's hired multiple coaches over the years. You've got to trust that coach. You've got to fearlessly enact what it is they are telling you to do. She talked about how she would not allow fear to stop her from doing something that she wanted to do, and how grit and hard work later can give way to being in what she called your working genius and leveraging ancillary tasks around you or in your day so that the majority of your time is spent within your zone of genius, your working genius. That absolutely was a brilliant takeaway. Third, when you say yes, you have to realize you're saying no to something else. If you're saying no to, lead generation calls or whatever critical work that you should be doing that only you can do best, then you're saying yes to having same as always results, and that you are not moving the needle forward for yourself. So that was a core function of setting boundaries and just understanding you have to be within your scope of brilliance, but you also have to set up boundaries, saying yes and no to the right things that are using your best skills, giving you the joy that you seek for within your family and the other times that you need, and also being able to make sure that you're moving that needle forward in your goals for your company. And then lastly, EXP, as a corporation, two core principles that she really elucidated: agile and sustainable. If you're looking to create a company, create a team, create a company within a company, or simply be the best you can be managing for some other corporation, you need to be thinking about two of these core principles, which I thought were excellent, around being agile, meaning that you can pivot and you can do something that will allow you to change and surpass your competition or perfect in a way that engages the marketplace of the moment that you are going after as a company, as a corporation. And then the second one was just sustainability that she talked about, which is basically that sustainability, meaning you want to make sure it has longevity. You want to make sure if you're enacting new rules, new parameters, new products that you're putting out there, whatever that is, you're taking new direction in your business or creating a business. Is that sustainable? Does it have longevity? Can it be desirable a year from now, 5 years from now? Is it actually going to still be affordable? And by the way, if you're discounting everything you're doing to a point where you're dropping price to compete, is that in fact a sustainable concept? in any job or corporate world. So visit our website to find our episode guide and worksheet that will help you use these tips to take action in your own life. Please like and subscribe and join us everywhere podcasts are streamed. We can't wait to bring you more incredible content every week so that you can rise in your own lives and careers. Again, thank you so much. Heather Mansy, signing off.